Hi, it's David here with another Alchemy Informative. This time we're going to be talking about conditional statements in your Alchemy test. So on my screen I have a simple test that loops through a data set called sigs.csv and executes the repeat function over the elements in that data set. So let's take a look at sigs.csv over here on my data tab, sigs. This is what the data source looks like. This is a simple calculation where the user puts in the number of cigarettes they've smoked and the application calculates the total milligrams of tar, a simple multiplication. So our data set has 12 rows. Back in my test, I'm going to do it for each of those 12 rows, execute the repeat function. Before we go there, I made it a little bit shorter for us here. I'm just going to execute rows 1 through 5, which is a 0 through 5 range here. Consequently, if you don't know how to come to that conclusion that it should be 0 through 5, you can come over here to the Actions toolbox and look under the repeater action. That's the word Alchemy uses for a for loop, is a repeat. And you can do View Documentation. This will bring up the Alchemy help, and in here you can see the explanation of the range. Okay, without further ado, I'll go ahead and execute that test once so you can see what happens in this repeat function, and then we'll look at the repeat function. So all it's going to do is cycle through 1 through 5 cigarettes, and it's going to verify the milligrams of tar in this calculation right here. And you can see that in here where we're getting the value of milligrams of tar and then saying the value we got was 10, does that match 10? And yes, it does, so that was successful. So let's take a look at the repeat function here. So the function just types the number of cigarettes, comes from the data file, into the edit field, and then it does a check for the total tar consumed calculation by grabbing the value that it sees in this field right here, saving it to a variable called CV total tar, and then doing a match. Does CV total tar match the value at that row in the data set in the total tar column? So that's all it does right now. So this video is about conditional statements. What I want to do now is enhance this test to also verify in my application the warning message that shows up at the bottom of the screen and the warning image that shows up over here to the right. So as you notice, when I go down below a certain threshold of milligrams of tar, the message and the image disappear. So I'm going to make my test now handle those situations. So in preparation, I already created a couple of functions. I've created a way to verify that the warnings are visible. So here we're checking if the warning message is visible. And then another test line that says check if the cigarette image is visible. So that's my function for warn viz, meaning warning is visible. This function verifies the warning is not visible, and I did that by creating a not visible here by inverting the result here in the detail of this. Otherwise it's a carbon copy of the other function. So what I'm going to do back over here in my repeat, I need some sort of decision for my conditional. The decision is going to be derived from the results of a compare. So I'm going to use the compare action out of my action toolbox, drag it onto my canvas, and I'm going to be comparing two numbers. So I'm going to immediately change the compare type, because I always forget to do this, to an integer. Then I'm going to go to the data toolbox. The first thing that I want to use as value 1 is the total tar that I've captured off the screen in the previous 2 steps up here, right, actually in this step. And I want to verify that if the total tar is greater than 29, because that happens to be in the requirements and what the behavior is of my application. If it's greater than 29, I want to fall into the if. All right, so if there might be some data rows where it's going to be less than, so I don't want this to fail, so my error threshold needs to be continue. And then I'll save that. All right, so now we know this is the compare decision for verifying that the warning is on the screen. So what I'm going to do is go over here to my data toolbox under functions, and I'm going to grab the warn visible function, and I'm just going to place it halfway across the screen on that test step, and voila, it becomes a statement inside the if. Now, to do the second part of that, we can simply, well, before we go there, let me show you a different way to do this. So let's say you just drug your function call onto the canvas and not the fancy way up here into the if. If you wanted to now make this be inside that if, you can just select this or any combination of statements underneath there that you want to be inside that if, and you can go up here and choose convert to conditional, and that will connect it to the statement just prior, so which was my compare. So if the compare is successful, then it falls into these if statements. So that's 2 ways to add the conditional in. So now if I want to do the second conditional, all I'm going to do is collapse this if, select it, because this can be very similar to the other one. I'm just going to copy it and paste it. So now I've got 2 of them. So I'm going to modify one of these. So we'll just modify this first one. So we'll say if the tar is less than 30, that's the other condition, then we want to not do this function, but we want to do warn not viz, because that's the other condition. And the only other thing that I'm going to do is I don't want to take so much time doing this decision, because it really makes the demo really slow. So I'll just shorten that. So now we don't have to sit there and wait on it to make a decision. And remember, let me point out a couple of things here again. We're doing warn and continue on the comparison or the decision in our if, and we're doing a compare type of integer because we're comparing a number to a number. And that should do it. So I'm going to save that function, go back over here to the test, and I'm going to execute. Remember, we're just going to execute on the first 5 lines of my data file because, again, 12 rows is a lot for a demo. So now 3, it popped up the warning message. I'm now verifying that the warning message is actually showing up on the screen. and the fifth one as well. And we can go through the screenshots here in our execution details and see that on the first screenshot there's no warning message. Good. The second screenshot, no warning message, 2 cigarettes. The third one will be 3 cigarettes and a warning message. So that's how you put in a control structure like an if inside of an Alchemy test. My name's David. This has been another Alchemy Informative. Thank you very much.